Okay, welcome everybody. This is the BCC gathering. We do this once a month, and the moderator is usually Jonathan Foray. Today he is working hard for his festival and other things that he does in the folk life arena. He's in Baton Rouge. So I'm pinch hitting for him today from the Center for Bayou Studies. And soon we're going to go through our introductions as people get into the Zoom, and eventually we're going to hear from Lance Nacio today. So we're really going to have a great speaker. Okay, so if you just popped in, we're going to remind you to go ahead and put something on the chat that introduces yourself and maybe what firm you're with or who you're representing. Tell us where you're from. Sometimes we get people from international spots, places all over America, or sometimes just around the corner in Jack Bay. Okay, we're getting them in. It's 12:02. So there's some special things that are coming up. You know, our Bayou Culture Collaborative is connected closely with the Louisiana Folklore Society. And we're going to talk about it again soon, but the Louisiana Folklore Society is getting ready to have its meeting. So if you like what we're doing today, that probably means you would like to attend the Louisiana Folklore Society. That's coming up in March, and that's going to be in Hammond. And I'm pretty sure the date is March 16th, Saturday, March 16th. And you could probably register by going to the website for the Louisiana Folklore Society.
Yeah, we'll have information about that later on in the meeting, but March 16th is the day for the more conference part of the meeting where you can hear presentations. March 15th, we're going to have an excursion. I'll tell you all about that when it's my turn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like a teaser, and you want them to stay on like a weatherman. You don't want to give the weather report until the last big finale, right? All right, all right. We got folks that are coming into the Zoom meeting. We're glad you're here. You can introduce yourself on the chat. And soon we're going to hear from Lance Nacio, but we're going to go through a few introductory slides first. Welcome to the Bayou Culture Gathering. We do this once a month. Oftentimes it's Jonathan Foray at the South Louisiana Wetland Discovery Center that's running things. But today I'm doing that from the Center for Bayou Studies with a lot of help from Sarah Fontana. Okay, today we're going to hear from somebody who has had an influence on my life and the lives of many people in South Louisiana. That's Lance Nacio. And we're really happy to have him here today. So that's coming up soon. Wanted to remind y'all about the management team. These are the folks that weigh in and kind of help the programming for the Bayou Culture Collaborative. That's Jonathan Foray from the South Louisiana Wetland Discovery Center. Maida Owens, she's on the call. She is with the Folk Life. She's the director of the Folk Life program with the state. That's in the Louisiana Division of Arts. We have Dr. Rachel Doherty. She's at University of Louisiana at Lafayette and the Center for Louisiana Studies. We're lucky to have her on our team. And I'm Gary LaFleur. I'm at the Center for Bayou Studies at Nicholls. Happy to help. So if you have suggestions or something like that, maybe people that you'd like to see do this, you could email one of us. One of the things we like to remind everyone on the Zoom is we are not exactly advocating for one way to deal with coastal land loss or the cultural problems that we're all facing because of coastal land loss. We don't want you to think we have the answers, but we do invite you to be here. What we're trying to do is learn about the future, think about culture and how it's going to adapt with the coastal land loss situation that we have in front of us. And probably our speaker today might be going over some of those issues. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn. And some of our helpers, we have several agencies that help us get this done. One of those is the Folk Life program. Another is Center for the South Louisiana Wetland Discovery Center. That's where Sarah is right now. Another is the Louisiana Folklore Society. You're going to hear about them from Rachel Doherty later. The Center for Bayou Studies is the agency that I work for, and Rachel's also at the Center for Louisiana Studies. All of these folks help support what we're doing today. But we get special support from our donors. So we received grants and other types of help from these folks. So we really appreciate the funding support that they're sending us. That's from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development, the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities, the Barataria-Terrebonne National Estuary Program, which is housed here on Nicholls, and the M.J. Sindler Family Fund for Culture and Media. We really appreciate y'all giving us a vote of confidence and sending some funds our way, and we're trying to make the best use of those funds. So thanks for that. Now I'm gonna give the mic over to Maida, who's going to talk about our spotlight this month.
Yeah, we have more passing it on workshops being set up this spring. We have, if you know of somebody who might want to participate, please let me know. Please contact me. And all this is in the chat too. Want to let you know that one that's coming up is by Diana Donnell Mason in St. Martinville. She's one of the few people that really know how to do the advanced caning. This isn't just pushing the sheets of cane into a rim. This is actually creating the sheet. And you're welcome to join that. I'll have all the details in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Maida. So every month we have somebody different. That is our folk life spotlight. Thanks for telling us about that. Now, this is what we're going to do today. This is our itinerary. We're going to have a visit from Lance Nacio, a shrimper. Then we're going to have some time for questions and answers with Lance. We're going to hear about Lance's hope for the coast. And we're going to get some updates about meetings of our working groups to keep y'all updated on that. We're going to have some final announcements, and then that's usually ending at 1. This is kind of an hour window for people's lunch break. But if you want to stay and visit, we have informal visitation until 1:30. So you can hang on if you have some other questions, or you want to get some details from Lance about things going on. So that's how it's going to go today. Okay, next it's time to hear from our speaker. So I'm honored to be able to introduce Lance today because I've had the pleasure of working with Lance a little bit. Lance was born in Lafourche Parish, but as far as I can tell, I usually see him in Terrebonne Parish these days, because every time I go to Chauvin, I can see his big, beautiful boat right there between the Klondike hardware store and Montague. So even though I don't get to talk to him, it's nice to see him there near Montague. And I think of him as kind of a triple threat on the Louisiana coast. This is how he's a triple threat. He's a boat owner. What does that mean? Really, that means he's a mechanic. He's the CEO of a company, Anna Marie Shrimp Company. That means he can fix anything in his universe. He can mend nets. He can be the bookkeeper. He can be the navigator. He takes care of that boat. Secondly, he's a shrimper. That's one of the greatest things to be in Louisiana. That means that he's providing shrimp. If you buy shrimp from Rouse's, you might be eating some of Lance's shrimp. That means he watches the sunrise on the Gulf of Mexico and the bays. He's part of what makes Louisiana special. And then the third part of his triple threat is he's a good communicator. Now, not all shrimpers are good communicators, but Lance takes this superpower. He's good about teaching people about what it's like to be a commercial fisherman, which is what he's doing today. And we appreciate that help. And he even did that for my own class, and he's helped out at Nicholls before with our Seafood Safety Institute. So Lance is very generous with his time and explaining what's going on the coast to people that don't necessarily understand that. So I'm honored and very happy that you get to meet this person that I'm just so glad that we have him, that we can tap into his superpowers. And he's a shrimper, but he's also a friend, and that's Lance Nacio. Thanks for being here, Lance.
Thank you for that generous opening. I wouldn't say that it's all that great, that opening. I do a lot, but it's just the nature of what we do. I mean, commercial fishermen are passionate people, and they work really hard to make a living. And because of globalization, I've adapted and tried to succeed and thrive in the future of this fisheries. But I just want to talk a little bit about my upbringing and kind of what brought me to where I am today. And my family, I grew up in a trapping camp on Bayou Blue in La Rose on the Lafourche-Terrebonne line. And back then, my grandparents, my parents, they lived back there and they had everything they needed. I mean, they hardly ever went to the grocery store. They didn't have when I was there as a kid, they had a gas generator they would use every now and then to put the lights on. But other than that, I mean, they were just totally off the grid. The camp had to be accessed by boat, so they hardly ever went to the grocery store or anything like that. They planted a garden. They had chickens, pigs and cows. And I mean, they just had everything they needed in their little universe. And I thought that was pretty neat. My family's always lived off of the natural resources in Louisiana. And, I mean, growing up, I was exposed to, just about anything that you can make a living from out of the water or on the land, and I thought that was pretty neat how they didn't have an education, but they were very, very smart, and they knew how to get by in life with what they had in front of them. But this is just some old pictures from back at our trapping camp, and that just inspired me to do the things that I do. And I mean, they always were innovative, and that's where I believe I get a lot of that from. Is whatever is in front of you, you address it and you make it better, and you figure out ways to get by. And that's what we've always done at Anna Marie Seafood. I started out shrimping in 1997, and when I started shrimping, things weren't that bad. The cost of fuel was 60 cents a gallon, and we were getting probably around $3 a pound for our large shrimp. And we went a few years that things were decent, and probably around 2001 there was a large influx of imported shrimp, and that's always been one of our challenges, the flood of imported shrimp coming into the country. And whenever they overload us with imported shrimp, our prices crash. And in 2001, 2002, we were seeing a price crash, and the price of fuel was getting up there. It was probably over $2 a gallon, and price of shrimp went down to around $1 a pound. So the numbers weren't working that well. So we started shrimping Monday through Thursday or Friday and selling to the public on the weekends. And we did that for, a couple of seasons. And local grocery store, Canada's, was offering fishermen to go sell in their parking lots. I didn't do the Canada's thing, but not long after, Rouse's offered. And I took them, I took some shrimp to Covington and went sell in their parking lot and met some of the folks at Rouse's. And I was asked if I would, want to work with them to develop a head-on shrimp program in Rouse's. And Rouse's was a big game changer for my business, because for 5 years I was the only guy that sold them head-on shrimp. We developed this program. When I started dealing with Rouse's, they had 11 stores. I mean, it was really simple. I would deliver to each individual store. I'd shrimp Monday through Thursday and deliver on Fridays. And we did that for a while. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet with dealing with the public and dealing with stuff like that. Some of the other things I did also, I was working with a nonprofit out of New Orleans called Market Umbrella, and they introduced me into farmers markets. And there's one farmers market in particular we've been doing for about 20 years now. We do it 3 times a week in Baton Rouge. We go on Thursdays and Saturdays, and then Sundays we do New Orleans. So, doing these farmers markets got us into processing. So we do hand peeled shrimp, we do fish, processed fish and stuff like that. So, we make packages that are consumer ready packages, 1 pound hand peeled and deveined shrimp, half-pound portions of red snapper and other types of fish that we cut. And, doing these things, I got to travel a lot, working with Market Umbrella. We did some guerrilla marketing in the early 2000s. We made 2 trips. We did a lot of local stuff, but we made 2 trips where we went. The first trip was New York. We were on the Today Show. They brought several shrimpers up there, and we went to different restaurants that was featuring Gulf shrimp, and we helped promote Louisiana shrimp. We was on the Today Show with Al Roker, which was a cool experience. And then our second trip, we went to San Francisco. We toured the Google campus. We did a cooking demonstration at Williams-Sonoma's flagship store. And through making these connections, me and several others that were on the trip, we were featured in Williams-Sonoma catalog for 6 months. They did a special after Hurricane Katrina, and they sold my shrimp in Williams-Sonoma catalog. I made some connections when I was there, and I still have them today. I have one of my biggest out-of-state buyers is a connection I made in San Francisco, back when we did that trip. And that trip was probably around 2006 or 2005. It was right around Katrina that we did that trip. And, those things were really cool and really helped our business be progressive and weather the storm, because dealing with commodity shrimp, it's very difficult. It's hard to plan, because every year it's different. The price could be one thing one week and be 50 cents a pound less the next week. So, it's very volatile, the market, when you're dealing with just a commodity shrimp market. So, dealing with Rouse's, it opened our eyes up to doing things a little different and, adapting to what we were dealing with. About 16 years ago, we put a plate freezer on the boat and we started plate freezing our shrimp. So those types of things helped us become a lot more sustainable. So, now we shrimp and we try to target just the shrimp that we're able to sell. We still sell probably about 20 or 30% of our catch to the processors. But if we can, sell it, we try to hold on to it and sell it ourselves. And, like any bycatch that we're able to save, whiting, flounder, we save all that stuff and we sell it at farmers markets. So, by us putting that freezer was a big game changer with us being able to sustain our operation, throughout the year, because we can work with a more stable price. So when we plate freezing these shrimp, we can get 6 months out of it, 6 months of shelf life in the freezer out of it. So it gives us a little time to breathe and be able to sell these shrimp. But, that was all some things that were, I did it through necessity is what I did it, it's not that I wanted to make all these investments and all these changes. I just did it through necessity. And I worked a lot over the years with Sea Grant on different programs. I worked with the Institute for Seafood Studies in out of Nicholls. I worked with LSU. They had Dr. John Bell. We did moisture studies. We did cold chain things. I mean, we did a lot of things to help us to produce a premium product, and that's what we pride ourselves on. We try to produce a premium product when we're out shrimping, and we send it wherever we can sell it. And that in itself creates a lot of challenges. And my son, he's always shrimp with me from a small child. He's 34 years old now, and 8 years ago, I passed the reins over to him as far as the captain. So he runs the Anna Marie, and I run the shoreside business. They just switched frames. The one on the right is my grandfather on my mother's side. That was a boat blessing, probably in 1945 or something like that. The one on the left is my grandfather sitting in the door, and his son with the hip boots on. They were featured in a magazine called Louisiana Duck Decoys, and they were known for carving paddles and push poles back then. That was their tools that they needed to work in the marsh and trap and do the things they did. So, I get my inspiration from these older folks that had no education, but boy, they sure knew what they were doing to make a living, with the resources. But through working with Market Umbrella, the guy who was leading Market Umbrella, he became the head of Slow Food USA, and I got involved in slow food movement probably 2010, 12, around that time. In 2014 and 2016, I was asked to be a delegate for this gathering they have every 2 years in Terra Madre, Italy. And I was a delegate representing Louisiana seafood on a national stage. And, I got to travel and meet people and talk about what we do. And, all these things that was all really eye-opening. And, to see the scope and range that food connects everyone, so that's what we're so passionate about, producing a good quality product. Slow Food's motto is good, clean, and fair. And that's how I look at my everyday life is, treat people fairly, bring them a good quality product, and then they treat you fair in return, so that's how we base our business, is by doing these types of things. And that's my grandson. He's we're hoping to get him. That's my son's son that's running a boat. I'm hoping to get him, behind the wheel of that thing before long. Since he's a child, he goes out on the boat. They stay out for 2 weeks at a time. He loves it. He looks forward to it every summer. He makes several days out on the water, and we're trying to teach the future generations that you can make a decent living at it. You just got to do things a little different. It's hard work, but it's rewarding work when you're done. Some of the other improvements we've done in the past few years. We worked at this program with Sea Grant where we tried out a shrimp grater on the boat. So now we have a mechanical shrimp grater. It's been on my boat for about 4 years now. And it works really well because when we're out harvesting shrimp, we actually target white shrimp, but there's a brown shrimp season in the spring, which usually the brown shrimp are really small, but there's a lot of big white shrimp in there. So this piece of equipment allows us to sort out our catch. White shrimp usually like to stay along the coast. They prefer a brackish water. So, white shrimp is usually always around. And we start harvesting them probably next month. They get in shore, near shore where we can reach them. They go offshore in the winter time, but that's usually not until January, February, they move out of our reach. But we're going to start harvesting shrimp before long, and it goes all summer. We have a 65-foot boat, so it allows us to, when the inshore bays and lakes are closed, it allows us to fish along the coast. We have a range of about 10 or 12 miles offshore is about the furthest we can go, but there's always something to be had along the coast. And our estuaries are really unique. I mean, they're one of a kind. It's where the Mississippi and the Atchafalaya meet the Gulf of Mexico along the coast. And, it's very bountiful, these estuaries. So shrimp, the population of shrimp is so strong that the biologists say if they didn't have natural predators, that the sea level would rise with how prolific shrimp are. So, as far as sustainability, the shrimp are very sustainable. They're there every year. We deal with a warm water shrimp that has a 12 to 15 month life cycle. And the biologists say that whatever we catch this year doesn't determine what the stock is going to be like next year. It's all based on environmental factors. I mean, if you get the right salinity without too much rain in the spring, you get the winds, they call it, the winds that we have that bring because shrimp's life cycle, it starts offshore as a larvae and it moves into the estuaries, and that's where it starts to grow. And it grows until the lunar cycle starts taking it out, or the cold fronts in the fall start taking it out. So they always come inshore to make their start, then they move offshore. But like I said, we try to, work as often as we can to produce what we need to sustain this operation. And, we don't just sell locally, we sell across the United States. We have customers that we put pallets of product on trucks and send it out to California, send it to the East Coast. I have a big customer we started doing business with that's out of Illinois. So it's a company that does seafood boxes. So we've been sending a lot of stuff up there, and our product gets spread out throughout the United States. And I really appreciate that because the consumers there aren't used to getting a good quality product. Just to tell you a little bit about the amount of imported shrimp that comes into this country. Shrimp is the #1 consumed seafood in the United States. We surpassed tuna probably 5 years ago, and we consume anywhere from 1.6 to 1.8 billion pounds of shrimp a year. And the amount of shrimp that's coming into this country, the last few years has been between 1.8 and 2 billion pounds. So, they're bringing in more shrimp than we can consume. And the domestic shrimp production, our market share continues to shrink. We're down to about 5%. So anyone who's out eating shrimp in a restaurant, they need to ask where it's from, because there's at least a 95% chance that you're not eating a good quality domestic shrimp. And, that's what's killing our industry. And, this industry, I've seen so much change in my lifetime, and it's not for the good. A lot of these processing facilities, people who deal with shrimp, they're shutting down, and it's all because of economics. And, I equate our culture and our coastal land loss, our shrimping industry, I equate it to like coastal erosion. It's little by little we're losing it. And, we need to stand strong and keep this a viable industry. And, because when fishermen are making money along the coast, they're spending it in the communities. They're buying stuff at the grocery stores, hardware stores. I mean, all these things. It has a big effect on the the communities. When fishermen are struggling, the businesses struggle also. And the numbers of shrimpers are steadily dwindling. We produce anywhere, just in Louisiana, we produce anywhere from 100 to 120 million pounds of shrimp, and it equates into billions of dollars. I'm not sure the numbers, but it's a big economic impact. And I mean, we need to keep that strong, because in South Louisiana, we're known for our seafood industry and we're known for oil and gas. And that's the two businesses that most of these people in these bayous work in. And, we need to, both of them are volatile, but, that's what we have. And our shrimping industry, I think our biggest thing is that we need to try to regain market share. We've been losing market share to imports over the years. And I think it's more of an educational thing. I think we need to educate the consumers. Some of the things that kind of upsets me is that a lot of these establishments that sell these imported shrimp, they're using our culture and our history to sell. They have pictures of shrimp boats in these restaurants. Even restaurants on the coast where there's shrimp boats tied up outside the restaurant, you think you're eating a domestic shrimp when there's a 95% chance that you're not. So, I think we need to educate the consumers and get the consumers to demand, domestic shrimp. And that's the only thing that's going to keep us alive, is going to have to be like a grassroots effort to keep this going. Unless we can get convince the politicians to limit the imports. They only test about 2% of the shrimp that comes into this country. And out of that 2% they test, there's about 30% that are contaminated with banned substances, chemicals and antibiotics that are in these products. And for some reason, it just continues to happen. One of the things that contributed to the last couple of years, one of the things that contributed to us getting a lot more imports into this country is that the European Union has a lot stringent testing. They test 50% that comes into their country, and when one country sends in 3 times a substance is banned, they get banned from shipping into that country. So there's a lot of countries that were banned to shipping their products into Europe, and then they just getting sent to the US because our standards aren't the same. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues that we need to do, but we really need to educate the consumer and get the consumers to demand, good quality Gulf shrimp.
Hey,
And
Lance, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any final issues you want to cover before we start taking questions?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about our coastal land loss issue. What's happened in South Louisiana. We live on a alluvial floodplain, and this land was built over 3,000 years from the Mississippi flooding every year and depositing sediment. And that's what built this area that we live in here. And in 1927, the Corps of Engineers levied the Mississippi River, so you quit the natural land building, and then you only have subsidence. And then some other issues that we're dealing with is for oil and gas production back in the 30s when it first started on our coast, there weren't the restrictions they are now, and they dug all these canals and pipeline canals and rig locations, and all that did was allow the salt water get into the estuary. And what's happening is when you allow salt water into areas that's normally fresh, it kills the trees and the grass, and that's the stuff that holds the land together. And, you know, when they leveed the Mississippi River, you always have subsidence where we live. And when they leveed the Mississippi River, say you had, you know, 4 inches of subsidence, but you had 6 inches of sediment, so you was always gaining. And right now, we just, you know, experiencing subsidence. So, you know, the scientists say it's sea level rise. I think we just sinking is what it is. You know, I mean, I'm sure there is some truth in the sea level rise, but I think our biggest challenge is that we're sinking. And, you know, I'm not pro diversion as far as a massive large scale diversion, but I'm pro smaller diversions where we can let that nutrient rich water back through our estuaries, because that's what keeps it alive. This fresh water coming from the river is loaded with nutrients. And when it goes through the marsh, everything grows better. And the marshes actually filter that water. So it actually helps make the water cleaner when it gets down to the Gulf. It helps eliminate and reduce the hypoxic deal we deal with every summer. So, you know, that's my vision on what they can do is allow more smaller diversions and not this massive sediment diversion that they're talking about. Because if you get too much fresh water, all it does is push out, it clears out the estuary. And the one they're talking about, what's going to happen if that goes forward, that those fishermen in the Lafitte area, I'm talking about the smaller scale fishermen, those areas between the Bayou Lafourche and the Mississippi River, that whole area is going to have to change their way of life, because the resources that they were used to making a living from won't be there anymore. It's going to be too much fresh water in that area.
Okay, that's awesome, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you giving us a window into the life of a shrimper in South Louisiana. So what we usually ask for folks that have questions is you raise your hand on the Zoom, or maybe you can ask a question on chat, and there's a chance that Maida is going to see that. While folks are thinking about their questions, I guess one of the things that I was wondering about, Lance, that you mentioned was, you know, if we want to buy your shrimp, if we're at Rouse's, can we say Anna Marie shrimp, or do we say, is this shrimp from Montague, or do we? Because I have a feeling if we say, is this Louisiana shrimp, it's easy for them to say, yeah, it's Louisiana.
Well, you know, our relationship with Rouse's, we don't sell to them all the time anymore. We sell to them usually during the seasons. We sell them fresh shrimp. One of the ways to get our shrimp every time is either come down to Montague to my place, or we do the Red Stick Market every Thursday, 8 to 12 in Baton Rouge, and then every Saturday, 8 to 12. And then every Sunday, we're in City Park in New Orleans, 8 to 12. So, you know, those are the ways to get our product. And if you don't live in Louisiana, we ship nationwide. My website is annamarieshrimp.com. So we send stuff all over the country through that way also.
Okay, that helps. All right, I appreciated what you said about kind of like the stock of shrimp. You know, even where I am, I understand the cycle of the shrimp life cycle. We teach that to students, but sometimes I get friends of mine that say, you know, is the shrimp okay? And you kind of explained that it's hard to overfish shrimp, right? No matter how hard you hit them one year,
Yeah.
they're gonna bounce back. But then I guess what people worry about is maybe there are some factors that could eventually hurt shrimp, like maybe an oil spill or maybe a hurricane. Can you explain how those affect the stock when that happens?
So, you know, typically a hurricane, what it'll do, it'll cause a boom in shrimp for several years, because shrimp, they're filter feeders. So when you have all that coastal land loss from a hurricane, you're producing a massive food source. And, you know, like I said, shrimp grow according to the environmental factors. So the more food you have, the more shrimp you could support. So usually after a hurricane, for 2 or 3 years after, we see a boom in the catch of shrimp. So, and then for, you know, when BP happened, most fishermen went on a job, you know, with BP. So the shrimp were being left alone. And, you know, the winter fishing that year was like off the charts. I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of shrimp that they had. And, you know, we probably did see a couple of slow years after BP, but the last several years since Hurricane Ida, you know, I mean, there's so much shrimp out there. It doesn't take a lot of effort to go and catch a boat full of shrimp.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say thanks for what you're doing. In a way, I imagine your first priority is your business, but just by keeping your business going on the coast, it kind of helps preserve the whole economy of the whole coast, right? So I see the work that you're doing is helping us out at two different levels. And I'm not seeing any questions come in. Might have gotten a few comments about the shrimping industry, maybe, but I didn't see anything. So maybe we're gonna
Jerry,
yep.
we have a so Carol asks, how can a consumer tell that you're purchasing domestic shrimp, especially if you're in a store in New Orleans? And do you know any stores in New Orleans that sell them?
Is there like a little stamp that we should look for, Lance, or is that fake?
No, when you're buying shrimp, even though it says Gulf shrimp, I mean, you really need to read the fine print on the back of the bag. You know, usually around the barcode, it says the country of origin. Everything's supposed to be labeled with the country of origin. So just be sure you look, even though it's got a picture of Louisiana on it, it says Gulf shrimp, you still need to read the back of the bag where it says the country of origin. Because that's, you know, that's the only way you could really tell is when you're reading the country of origin.
We also have a question from Kimberly. Does the Gulf's dead zone affect shrimp?
So what the Gulf's dead zone does is the shrimp can swim and move. So the shrimp stay ahead of the dead zone usually. And really what happens in the summertime when the dead zone gets really big, it seems like it pushes the shrimp along our coast and in the bays and all. So it actually creates more shrimp. You know, the bigger boats that are fishing in deeper water, those usually have more challenges than we do. Because our estuaries, you know, we're always, you know, we always have an influx of water from the north, so that brings oxygen in our water also.
So as well, we do have a big group of folks in this meeting who are from the southwestern part of the state. So Keegan is asking, do you know of any shrimpers in southwestern Louisiana who use some of those same practices and strategies as you?
There's only a handful of us that, you know, a lot of people they'll just sell to the public, but there's only a handful of us that do the types of things that we do. I think I'm one of the only ones with a shrimp grater on the boat. And plate freezer, I think right now we have 3 or 4 of them in the state that have plate freezers on the boat. A lot of them have brine system, which is a really efficient way of freezing the shrimp, but it's not a good long-term holding type of shrimp because the salt affects the peeling of the shrimp. You know, those shrimp are meant for, you know, being rinsed and reprocessed within a month or 2, where our shrimp, you know, when we put them in a box, we can get about 6 months out of them.
Okay, I see a question coming in from Maida, and that's probably going to be our last question. Then we're going to ask Lance about his hope for the coast.
Okay. Lance, I'm wondering about what you see as the future, the longer term future of shrimping, the need to figure out how to live on the coast with hurricanes and land loss. Do you see there being a vital, you know, the shrimp are there, but can the shrimpers stay close enough to shrimp? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're always going to be able to shrimp. It just depends on, you know, where we're going to be able to live. I think, you know, fishermen are going to have to start moving inside the levee system. And the levee system is a necessary evil that we have. I think it's necessary for us to continue to live here longer. But what I'm seeing is that the land loss is happening a little faster on the outside of the levee system. And I think it's because when they close those gates on these bayous and you have a levee system, that water moves a lot faster. It comes in a lot faster and it leaves a lot faster. And that water, you know, it erodes the land when it's happening. So, you know, I mean, I think we're always going to have a coast where fishermen are going to be able to fish. But I just think that the people who are on the outside the levee system are going to have to eventually move inside the levee system, because as the land subsides and you have more land loss, the water comes in faster.
Okay, this will really be the last question. That's Michael Rogers has his hand up. Go ahead, Michael. Yeah, you got to unmute.
Hey, there we go. Hey, I'm just to kind of circle back. I was curious in regards to like the diversion, right? You know, you were saying that you would support like you know, multiple diversions rather than the one, you know, big diversion. And I was wondering, like, you know, what has been communicated to y'all, like you know, shrimpers, like, you know, in regards to why that one diversion is going to be better if it does seem to imperil like your livelihood, right? Like why that works rather than the multiple diversions, right? I don't know, like I don't know what's been communicated, and I guess also kind of like what level of communication or like relationship, or you know, is there between, you know, parties involved with that and you know, like shrimpers.
Thanks for the
So
question.
what I've been being told, I mean, I'm on the shrimp task force and we've been briefed several times by CPRA, and you know, they have, I don't know how many millions of dollars to help the fishermen adapt to what's going to happen with this diversion. But I think the reason they're wanting to do a big diversion like that is because it's the biggest bang for the buck. And if something is not done, the Mississippi River wants to change its course. You know, it wants to go a shorter route. So I think that by opening a big crack in the river like that is going to help New Orleans, the port of New Orleans, stay there a little longer. Because I mean, there's some studies by LSU saying that it's not if, but it's when the levee is going to change its course. It wants to go back through the Atchafalaya, and when that's going to happen, within 30 days, there, you know, millions of people are going to have to move because a saltwater wedge is going to go all the way up to Baton Rouge and they're going to contaminate our water system, our drinking water. So, you know, I think that they're looking at that also in factoring that in, because I think these smaller diversions won't give the relief that the river is going to be needed in the future.
Okay, now we're gonna do just the same thing that we do every month, and that is ask Lance for what he sees as his hope for the coast.
So, you know, my hope for the coast is that if we can ever shore up our coastline, you know, I mean, I think that they're missing the boat on that. I think they need to fortify our coastline and put these barrier islands back where they used to be. And just that alone is going to slow the coastal erosion. And then I think another step would be is, you know, start letting more fresh water through the estuaries. You know, you have this area, you know, you get around the Atchafalaya River, the Mississippi River. I mean, you can see a lot of life, a lot of new land and stuff, but the place in between where there's no fresh, no river water coming through, I mean, you're seeing land loss, you're seeing grass burning from saltwater intrusion. You know, I mean, I wish that they would work on trying to, you know, introduce river water into the Terrebonne estuaries. You know, I think that our area is devoid of the nutrient rich sediments that's needed that comes through, you know, with river water.
Okay, that makes sense. I appreciate your wisdom on that. I think you got the same knowledge that most ecologists do of that system, Lance. It really shows that you know what you're talking about. So we're gonna go over a few more things. If you have questions for Lance, you can stick around, because after we close down, you'll be able to ask a few more things. What we wanted to remind you is that if you're interested in what we're doing today, interested in the Bayou Culture Collaborative, you could still go look at our position statement, and we have some definitions of what we're interested in at the Louisiana Folklore.org site, and you can sign on to the position statement if you agree with that. So consider doing that if you like some of the things that you heard today. Okay, and we wanted to remind you about some working group meetings. And so we have this big umbrella, the Bayou Culture Collaborative, but several groups have been established within the Bayou Culture Collaborative, and they have different meetings at different parts of the month, apart from what we're doing today. So the Culture and Coastal Planning Working Group is meeting Monday, March 4th at 2 p.m. Everyone's invited to attend these, and so you can go to www.louisianafolklore.org if you want to find out about how to get in there. So that's one working group. The Louisiana French Language Working Group is meeting on Tuesday, March 19th at 6 p.m. And the convener of that, kind of like the captain, is Dr. Rachel Doherty. I'm not sure if you have something to update us with on that.
Yeah, if you're interested in contributing to efforts to strengthen organizations that help with French in Louisiana, or there's legislation you're concerned about, give us an email, and we will send out to you our, it's not exactly a newsletter, it's more like a meeting recap and a call to action that we do after each one of our meetings. And so we are about to send that one out, but we'll send that to you, and we can give you a link to our Google Drive where we've got actionable projects in there. People you can contact if you want.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Doherty. Okay, we have another working group called Artists and Tradition Bearers. They are meeting by Zoom on Wednesday, March 20th at 6 p.m. If you're interested in joining that, you can look into getting with them on the Zoom at that time. We have a few other working groups. Preparing receiving communities. This is one of the things that we're interested in setting up here. A lot of people are moving away from the coast, and we want to make sure on the receiving end that folks north of us are ready for that. So if you're interested in that, you could go to the next meeting on Tuesday, March 19th. That's happening at 2 p.m. Okay. And the next working group is called Protecting Collections. Especially after Hurricane Ida, we found that there were a lot of museum collections and archive collections that got in trouble. They got damaged. So if you're interested in helping or knowing more about that, you could go to their meeting on Thursday, March 21st at 10 a.m. That's Protecting Collections. Okay, and then next month, we're gonna do this again. A lot of these people are gonna be around at this next event, but what this event is the Louisiana Folklore Society annual meeting that's going to be in Hammond. And I think Rachel probably has something to say about that.
Yes. Well, we do have also, for your reference, a lot of the information is in the chat. If it's easier for you to grab things and look at them written, that's the kind of person I am. If somebody tells me something, I'm like, I need to take notes. Send me an email. So yes, the Louisiana Folklore Society meeting is in Hammond on March 15th and 16th. As I said earlier, the conference portion of the meeting where you'll hear a presentation is the Saturday on the 16th at the Alumni Center. We'll still gather there on the 15th in the afternoon, but we do have an excursion that day at 4, which is at a roadside shrine, Our Lady of Tickfaw Shrine, which is appropriate for folk life. Very interesting origin story of that shrine, and then since it's been around, a lot of people have contributed to it. So if you're interested in religious folk life and lore, we're doing that. The theme for our meeting is hauntedness, lore, and lacunae. So we've encouraged people to submit proposals on the topic of hauntedness, whether it's a ghost story, an actual ghost story, or if it's just a burning question that you haven't been able to shake. And so it drove you to do all of this research. There are lots of ways that people have interpreted this. And then some people are just coming to talk about folklore practice and what's going on in Louisiana folklore and ethnographic studies in our state. So the call for presentations is closed, but you can still come and listen, and we would love for you to. So you can register on our website, and if you want to have lunch with us, we're having that catered from a southern place, but we'll have vegetarian options too. So you can register, pay for lunch ahead of time, or if you just want to come and listen to to listen to certain presentations, the registration is only $10 or $5 if you're a student. Yeah, and after this weekend, really soon, we're going to have the presentation. We'll announce what the presentations are. Got to go through them all. So
Okay, thanks, Dr. Doherty. You know, we meet on Zoom here for these every month, but we rarely get to see each other face to face, and so that's what's gonna be happening in Hammond. It'll be a rare treat for us to all be in each other's presence. So that's next month, and I think Rachel's gonna stay on here and give us an update on our friend David Sheremy.
yes, so we in Lafayette are having a fundraiser for David Sheremy, Dr. David Sheremy, who is an important member of the Francophone community for language preservation, and also as a writer. So if y'all don't know David Sheremy, he's a Cajun, and he is a lifelong advocate for French, Louisiana French. And he's one of the most brilliant contemporary writers that we have, who's producing essays and poetry, and even more. He has other projects in Louisiana French, and he also teaches Louisiana French online. There are a lot of people who want to be adult learners of Louisiana French, and it's hard to do that. So David Sheremy has offered those lessons online. Well, he had a health crisis, and he's unable to attend to all of these callings that he had. He is in a long-term acute care facility right now. And he and his wife both are lifelong educators. And so as an independent contractor, he and a retired teacher, she, even though they probably had things pretty well squared away for taking care of the basics, they're going to need some financial help for David's care. We need him back with all his faculties so that he can read his poetry and give speeches and teach people. So we're having a fundraiser for him at Cité des Arts in Lafayette on March 10th. And this is going to be a lot of Louisiana musicians, a lot of Cajuns and Creoles, a lot of French music, but not all. And a few of us in the Francophone community, the writers and the researchers, we're going to be reading David's poetry. He's been recognized around the world. He was at a big gathering of French-speaking poets from all over the world in Senegal earlier this year. So we're going to be paying homage to him and reading some of his poems in French. So if you understand French, that's great. If you don't and you just like French music, that's great too. Come and contribute to this fundraiser for his year.
Thanks for filling us in on that, Dr. Doherty. I feel like we're standing on the shoulders of David Sheremy and a lot of what we do here. So we hope that goes well. And wanted to tell you about something that's a little bit more in my universe. We are going to host the Bayou Studies Conference. That is coming up on Saturday, March 9th here at Nicholls. And we have a day full of talks and posters. Some of those are faculty and students. Some of those folks are from the community. Some of those folks are people that are in on these BCC gatherings. And so if you're interested in some of what we're doing today and what we're talking about, you might be interested in attending the Bayou Studies Conference. It'll help us if you RSVP. There's no formal registration, but if you email Jenny Shake Snyder, her email is at the bottom there, that will help to give us a good head count. So think about that. Okay, those are a couple things that are going on that are close to us. And there's the Rougarou Fest. And we wanted to remind you that if you like the Rougarou Fest, you can go in and vote for it as the Reader's Choice Award for the best cultural festival. And so to do that, we have the link in the chat. And if you go and vote for that as being the best festival, it's going to help our friends out at the South Louisiana Wetland Discovery Center. They're the ones who host the Rougarou Fest. That's Sarah and Jonathan and Sam and Angel. And it'll be great for them if they win that contest. Okay, we're getting close to our 1 o'clock time. There is a chance to make announcements if you needed to put those in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and say something on the Zoom call, you can make an announcement. We're coming up to a pretty busy time of the semester, so there's a lot of things going on. All right, Maida's going to let me know if she sees announcements on the chat. This is far down the line, but one thing that we have coming up in a little more than a month is the Chauvin Sculpture Garden Picnic and Blessing of the Fleet. And that's hosted by Nicholls. But that's a great opportunity to see the blessing of the fleet as it passes the Chauvin Sculpture Garden. And we are going to have a narrative stage with support from Maida and a grant that we were able to get to talk about how climate change and coastal land loss is affecting people that are living in Chauvin and some of the history of Chauvin.
Gary, can you give us the date for that, a specific date?
Yep. Sorry, that's Sunday, April 14th. So that's after Easter, Sunday, April 14th. Okay. Announcement time. I think we're just about coming to the end of our time together, to the 1 o'clock hour. It was awesome having y'all on the call. You don't have to hang up right now. We're going to stick around in case you had any other questions that you wanted to ask Lance, or you might have had some other announcements that you wanted to make in an informal setting. So if you stay, we'll leave the Zoom open for a little while. Otherwise, we hope to see you in Hammond. We might see you there. We might see you at the Bayou Studies conference. Might see you at the next Zoom meeting that we have. If you're interested in looking for that, you can always register for these gatherings by going to the louisianafolklore.org site.